guys, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a clean fantasy romance recommendations video. I was requested to do this from a subscriber, I think sometime last year, so I apologize if that person is still subscribed. That it took me so long to do this, but yeah, I am now doing it. These are obviously not all the books I've read in the fantasy romance genre. Some of these cross over into other genres as well. But these are like my top favorites. These are also ones that I have or I could get from the library to show you rather than just having like a picture on the iPad on the screen or something like that. So yeah, just know this isn't all of the ones I've read or would even recommend, but these are like the most recent, the ones that when I look at I get like really giddy and really love them and stuff like that. So for all these books and their authors, I will leave them listed down below, also to reviews on my Goodreads for all of these books, because I am pretty sure I have reviews for every single one of these. If I don't, it just won't have a link next to it, but I'm pretty sure every single one of these I at least have one review for them. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to just jump right into it. And the first one is more of an author than the books. Oh, also, I'm going to say I'm not going to be describing these books in great detail about what they are about. Go ahead and check them out on like Goodreads or Amazon or something for yourself to know exactly what they are about. I'm going to more just give you the vibes of what they are, like maybe some other types of some content and stuff that might be in there. Things like that. I'm going to just give you a general sense of it and why I love them specifically. So it's not going to be great details about every single book, just because if I did that with the amount of books I have, it would take forever. So with that said, I'm going to just jump right into the first one I have, and this is more of an author than the actual books, and that is Brittany Fichter. I have just a sampling of her books here, but definitely of all the books I've read of hers so far, which is about, let's see, 3, 4, about 8 of them, she has a whole bunch more. I have loved every single one of them, so yeah, it is safe to say she is a favorite author of mine, and I really enjoy her works. She goes into like darker, more in-depth stuff, but she definitely leaves light to shine. Most of these cross over into Christian fantasy as well. But even if you're not a Christian, you can definitely read these and get enjoyment out of them. They're not really intensely overtly Christian, but they do have elements in there, especially in her Becoming Beauty trilogy. There is like a, I forget, I think he's the Maker. The Maker, I think, is what his name is, God's name is in that series. He doesn't have an overt presence, but he has enough of one where you can definitely see the author's faith and definitely see where she's coming from and stuff like that. So it's there, her faith is there in the stories, but it's not overtly Christian fantasy. But yeah, definitely the Becoming Beauty trilogy is the, it's its own trilogy, but it's also the first 3 books of her Classical Kingdom series, which is a bunch of fairy tale retellings that she's continually adding on to. The first 3 books are the Becoming Beauty trilogy, which include Before Beauty, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, Blinding Beauty, which is a retelling of The Princess and the Glass Hill, and the 3rd book, which is Beauty Beheld, which is a retelling of Hansel and Gretel. I really loved all 3 of them. I liked how she developed the romance because, yeah, it's a typical fairy tale retelling where in the very first book they get like married by the end, but she continues it on into the next 2 books. I really liked that. And definitely a lot of angst and tension in the 2nd book. That one nearly drove me insane with all the stuff going on in that one. I was just like, please let everybody be fine. She does have that in her writing that she just makes you really, really tense. The very first book, Before Beauty, it does get a little bit to get into. The first few chapters, I had a hard time getting into it. I believe it was the author's very first book. It reads very much like it. So the first few chapters, which are in Everard's perspective, who's our male hero, were a little rough for me to get in, but once we got switched to Isa's point of view, who is our main heroine, I was definitely sucked in by then. I think her point of view first comes up in chapter 4, so I would give it a little bit if you try it. Give it a little bit of time before you give up on it. It is also, I believe, always free on Kindle, on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon and put in Before Beauty by Brittany Fichter, and look it up on the Kindle store. I believe it's always free. So if you're curious about the book but don't want to like buy a paperback copy or something, I'm pretty sure it is always free. I will leave that linked down below in the description. If I'm wrong, I apologize for that, but I think it's always free. At least every time I've seen it, it is. So, and that's how I got it. So there's that one. Also part of that series, which is more of a novella, is The Green-Eyed Prince. This is a retelling of The Frog Prince, and I really enjoyed this one too. Yeah. This one is set in a desert world, so she puts the Frog Prince in a desert setting, which I really enjoyed that. It was very creative. I'm also just going to show these two, which are in the Neverland Fairy Tales novellas series. These are more obscure fairy tales. They're not set in the classical kingdoms world, but they're still clean, sweet romances. And so far there's three books in that series. I have not read the third one yet, but the first one is The White Slipper. The second one is The Prince's Dangerous Wish. This is a retelling of The White Slipper. This is a retelling of The Pink. And the third one is The Enchanted Wreath, which is a retelling of The Enchanted Wreath. I have not read that one yet, which is why it's not in this video, but yeah, I've read these two, adored both of them. And this one is technically not fantasy. It kind of is, sort of, so I'm just including it. That's Clara Soldier. This is more of a historical. It's a retelling of the Nutcracker, and it's not set in her Neverland. It's not set with this series. It's also not set with the Classical Kingdom series. This is a completely different standalone book. It's more of a historical because it does follow World War II events, but, or at least the aftermath of World War II, but it does have a magical sense in that Clara and kind of gets sucked into this almost like portal-like dimension in order to find her fiance James. So there is kind of a magical element to it, which is why I'm including it in this video. Also, it's just by her, and I've read it and I really love it, so I just want more people to know about it. Okay, the next book on this list is, actually the next series on this list is by Selina R. Gonzalez, and that is the Marifold Chronicles. This is another fairy tale retelling series. They're each standalones, so you can read them out of order. These two do follow directly each other, so you will, if say you read A Lonely Dance first, which is the second book, you will get spoilers for how the ending of A Thieving Curse is, so I would recommend reading them in publication order. This is book 1, A Thieving Curse. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, except our beast is, it was not his fault that he was turned into a beast, which I really like that plot line, and he technically actually turns into a dragon. He's like part dragon, so that's cool. I mean, not for him, but, and yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. I really enjoy this. This does have some, trigger warnings, mainly for like, girls not treated very well. People are not treated very well when they're captured at the end of the book by one of the sort of villains. So there's kind of some like physical abuse in there. There's a few like unwanted touches from a guy to a girl. So I believe on Amazon the author puts trigger warnings at the very bottom of the description of the book. So like when you read the blurb on Amazon, I believe at the very bottom on all of her books, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure she puts trigger warnings. So I would just say look into that. The second book is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and we do follow a character who is kind of a villain in the first book, A Thieving Curse, and this is kind of his redemption story. So we follow that plot line, and this is the power of how an author can write, because I did not like him in the first book, but I loved him in this book. So that definitely shows how much of a good author she is in just redeeming this character to the point where I was like rooting for his happy ending. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This one does have like fae in it. This one also has, I believe, some trigger warnings along the same lines as A Thieving Curse. Yeah, so I would just say recommend looking up those things, because the author does tend to write hard topics into her books, which I really like. That is one of the things I really like about her stories, but might not be everybody's cup of tea, so I would just say look into that if you want to read these. But yeah, really, really love these. This one is, out of the series so far, this one's my favorite, though I gave both books 5 stars. So yeah. And by the same author is her first series, The Mercenary and the Mage duology. Yeah, this definitely has trigger warnings, but we basically follow a mercenary who is kind of forced to serve this sorcerer dude. He's like magically forced to, and if he doesn't, he'll like get killed, or his friends will get killed and things like that, and he'll be like magically tortured and stuff. And we also followed like the last mage in this kingdom that all the mages have been like wiped out except for her because she was kept hidden. They collide and sparks fly for them, but danger also flies as well. And yeah, this series, I will say, has the most hideous villain ever. I hate his guts. I have not seen a review or met a person who has read the series who likes the guy. I don't even know how you could. He's literally horrible. There are some triggers for sexual assault, mainly like unwanted kisses and touches from a guy to a girl, along those veins. There is also our main character, Regulus. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got his name right. He's our mercenary character. He does go through a lot of mental health issues. He goes through a lot of pain and trauma. I don't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure he has suicidal thoughts at one point in this book, or that's in the companion duology servant mercenary brother, which is also part of the series. I don't remember which one, but I do know he has bouts of depression, so look up triggers for this series as well. As someone who has depression, I found it very kind of healing in a sense, reading about a character who had the same struggles as me, so it was not triggering for me, but I know some people may be different. But yeah, and the romance is adorable. These two, like, they deserve the best of everything, and I love them. But yeah, this is a duology. It also has the 3 extra books that go with it, which 2 of them follow a side character and kind of his story, and then the third one is a short story that definitely needs to be read at the end of all these books because it has spoilers for how the ending is. So the first book, but if you want just the main series, that is these 2 books, which is Prince of Shadow and Ashes book 1 and Staff of Nightfall is book 2, and I really love these. These are labeled as new adult as well. They're not young adult. I believe this series is also labeled as new adult, so yeah, but definitely for these, I would look up triggers for that too. But like I said, I think the author has that at the very bottom of the descriptions for the books. So yeah, I would definitely look into all those, even like the omnibus version, because this series has an omnibus version. So if she doesn't have it for the individual books, it might be at the end of that one. So I would definitely look into that and just look at other reviews and triggers and stuff like that and see what might work for you. But the romance is absolutely amazing in those, and yes, they're just wonderful, and I love them. Okay, the next book I have is, well, this is a series as well, but I've only read the first book, so I'm only recommending the first book, and that is Fierce Heart by Tara Grace. This is the first book in the Elven Alliance series, and I love this. It's basically the like idea of it is like, you know, Legolas from Lord of the Rings has to marry a human, and it is an amazing series. It's a marriage of convenience story, and the princess actually is willingly going along with this arranged marriage, which is very different. I love Essie. I love Farendel, who is our elf hero, and yeah, they're just amazing. This is the cutest romance ever. You can technically read this book as a standalone as well if you don't want to continue with the rest of the series. It's 9 books. So yeah, and we follow different characters. The first 3 are mainly about Essie and Farendel, if I recall correctly, and the other books we still follow them somewhat, but they do introduce other couples as well. But like I said, I haven't read beyond book 1 so far, but I love this book. Yeah, it's basically, this is, ow, and I smacked my glasses with a book. That's fun. But yeah, I would call this almost a comfort read for me. I really love it. Such a cute romance, and I smacked myself again with the book. I highly recommend this. Okay. The next book, this one may not work for everybody, depending on your content levels, but Court of Queen by H.L. Burke. This is a really short novella. Basically, this knight, Devon, he accidentally wanders into the fairy realm, and he gets captured, and the fairy queen's like, I need a new husband, so yeah, you're an icky human, but you'll do. You have to compete in these 3 trials for my hand. And Devon's like, I don't want to. But then she's like, well, if you don't, I'll turn you into a frog or like an earthworm. And so he's like, okay, I'll compete. Because what else is he gonna do? He's a human stuck in a fairy world and he can't get out. So he unwillingly becomes a part of these trials. And he is helped by a servant girl. She's a different type of fairy. I forget her name. No, actually, I don't forget her name. I don't know how to say it. It's Sylvain? Sylvain? I know he calls her Sev, so maybe I'll just call her that because, yeah. But anyways, he gets helped by her, but then he starts, you know, falling in love with her. So, you know, it complicates things because he's supposed to be fighting for this harpy queen that he doesn't want to marry, but, like, he wants to turn into a frog even less. So, that is the chaos of this book. It's very short, but for a short amount of time, the romance is actually developed and built up really well. I really like the characters. Yeah, really, really enjoy this. It's one of my favorite books. Literally, when I first read it, I read it in a day. And then, like, the next day I read it again. So, I really love this book, but it may not work for everybody. There is one scene at one point that is tiny bit more detailed than I would call it, like, semi-detailed. So that might be uncomfortable for some people. And there is a few, like, innuendos from this queen who is literally awful. Nobody likes her. So there's a lot of, like, her hinting at things about him and stuff like that. And he kind of has to play along a little bit in, like, bantering with her and, like, I guess what she would consider flirting. But he's just like, I'm just trying to stay alive. And technically he's just being sarcastic most of the time. But, yeah, there is one part at the end where in order to save the girl he actually likes, Devon does have to kind of pretend that he's gonna, you know, go in the bedroom with the queen. Nothing happens beyond them sitting on a bed together because literally he ties her up the next moment, but it is in there. It may be kind of uncomfortable for some people because they do, you know, like, do some kissing before he ties her up because he's basically tricking her into it so he can save Sev. But that is in there. It may be uncomfortable for some people. It is, I would call this more like an adult or new adult type book. So use your discretion of what is comfortable for you. I really enjoyed the story overall. I think it's very clean beyond that. So that doesn't cross lines for me, things like that. I mean, depending on how it's handled. It's handled well in this book, in my opinion, so this is more just a personal preference thing for people, so that's what's in it. I think this is the only book in the stack I don't have a review for, because I haven't reread it, so I haven't written a proper review for it, so that is the content warnings I have for this one, so yeah. But overall, I really, really like this book, so use your discretion for if it would be a good fit for you. Okay, the next book is actually a series. Of course it is, because I love series, and that is the Legends of Lanaria series by Michaela Bush. These are totally clean. Pretty much only some light kissing is involved in these. They're amazing. The first book is The Lady of Lanaria. This is a Rapunzel retelling, and it's amazing. These are non-magical Christian fantasy. Yeah, and let's see. There's a little bit of darkness in here, but the romance is adorable. Yeah, especially if you really like Tangled like me, or just Rapunzel in general, or just light, sweet stories, this would be perfect. But with a little bit of light, sweet story with a little bit of darkness and danger, this would be perfect. The second book is The Healer of the Brigade. This has Beauty and the Beast vibes. It's not a retelling as far as I know, but it does have Beauty and the Beast vibes. A representation for a girl with a crippled girl who is definitely portrayed as the hero. And yeah, there's a lot of like God's healing powers through people. His healing powers, like written in the Book of Acts, there's a lot of that in here. A lot of like spiritual insight and spiritual gifts and stuff like that. So it's not magic. It is gifts that God gives to us that we can use, and really enjoyed this one. as well. Yes, this one is a new release. Also, if you've never heard of it, but you've probably heard about me talking about this one, but not this one as much. This one's a new release, and the third book will be coming out, I believe, later this year. I'm not sure, and it has Scottish, like, Brave vibes, if you like the movie Brave. So, yeah, definitely am looking forward to that one as well. But, yeah, and the romances are super sweet in this one. And these, the romance is more in The Lady of Lanaria than The Healer of the Brigade. There is still romance in here. It's just, this one's a little bit lighter than this one is. So, that is those. And the next series I have, I only have one of the books to show. It is a trilogy so far. I believe there's going to be a fourth book, and that is the Elves of Lessa by K.M. Shea. These are individual romance books that are set in the same world. The characters kind of have some crossover, but each book is about a different couple. And these are elf-human relationships. And yeah, The Prince's Bargain is the third book in the series. The first book is Red Rope of Fate. The second book is Royal Magic. Third is The Prince's Bargain. I really enjoyed these. The first book, Red Rope of Fate, is kind of almost a forbidden love story, but not really. It's kind of a, you might almost call it a grumpy sunshine. I don't fully know what that trope is, but it kind of has those vibes because the guy's a little bit kind of a stiff, stern dude, and the elf lady, she's not really bubbly and happy, but she definitely has more life than he does. And yeah, the second book, Royal Magic, is a marriage of convenience plot between like two royal children, and yeah, there is that one. It has a lot of danger in that one. There's a lot of like fighting. There's some danger in all of them, but yeah, that one I just don't really know what else to say. And this one is, I'm not sure what you'd call this one. More like they kind of have to work together, and then they kind of fall in love with each other while they're working together. So yeah, there is that. This one definitely has like intrigue of like someone's trying to take over the throne from the crown prince, and he's like trying to make the crown prince look bad. So these two are like teaming up to reveal the bad guy and catch him in his deeds. And it's a lot of fun. Out of the three of these, my favorites were Red Rope of Fate and The Prince's Bargain. I liked Royal Magic too, I just didn't like it as much. But most people seem to like that one more, but you know, that goes to show my unconventional tastes, as per usual. So yeah. But all the romances are incredibly sweet, are incredibly cute in that series, and I would recommend it. I mean, I would recommend all of these, but whatever. The next book is part of a series, but I've not read the rest of the series, and I don't think you need to read them in order, considering I read book 8, and that is Turret by Camille Peters. This is a Rapunzel retelling, and it's amazing. I really like it. This is a much slower story than some of the other ones I've mentioned. It's more of an introspective, like, characters are growing type story, because for pretty much 98% of this, they are in a tower. So yeah, there's really not tons to go on, but it's more a personal growth journey for Gemma, our main character, and just, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Also, if you like the idea of people with like illnesses and like brokennesses and handicaps and stuff, but magic doesn't automatically fix those things. If you like that type of thing where it's realistic that, say, yeah, it could get a little bit better, but the magic doesn't fix everything, I think you'll definitely like that. That was one of the things I really enjoyed about this book, among a million other things, some of them which I cannot put into words because this book made me cry, like, through the whole thing, and that rarely, if never, happens. So yeah, I really loved this book, so yeah, I highly recommend it. I don't know about the rest of Camille Peters' books. I know she has a bunch of fairy tale retellings set in this same series, but I haven't read the rest of them, so that's why I'm only recommending this one. Okay, and the next one the next set of books I'm going to recommend are kind of part of the same series, so to speak. It's a multi-author series where villains of fairy tales get happily ever afters, or, you know, they're not really villains, that type of thing. So the first one I'm going to recommend, actually, I liked all the books. These are just some of my top favorites. I've talked about other ones in different videos and stuff, but these were the ones I really, really enjoyed, really wanted to highlight here. And the first one is The Dark King and the Eternal Dance. This is by Alicia Adamson. This is a combination retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses and the Greek myth of Hades and Persephone. And I really like this book. This book, it started out as a 4-star for me, but I kept thinking about it throughout the year, so I bumped it up to a 5-star. The cover is beautiful of all these series, but this one especially. And yeah, I really like this because, you know, the whole Hades and Persephone thing, like he kidnaps her and stuff, that doesn't actually happen in this book. This is more of she ends up staying in his place accidentally. So, but yeah, the romance is super sweet. I really enjoyed it. The romance might be, I wouldn't call it intense, but some people might not like it. I can't really explain why, because I don't really know how to explain it. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it. The mixing of the two tales simultaneously was really interesting to see, because this definitely has like Greek flavors to the story, but it's also clearly a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and I really like how the author combined those two. But yeah, really like this one. And also part of that same universe series, and I apologize for where my library decided to put the sticker, and that is The Baker and the Wolf by J.M. Stengel. This is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and I loved this. This one, for a while when I first read this, there were a lot of romances and stories that I didn't feel it. Like, I didn't feel the connection between the characters, and this one did it magnificently. Like, this was the first book in a long time when I first read this a couple years ago, that I felt it, and I just, felt all the, warm, fuzzy feelings and stuff, and I just really enjoyed it. The ending was a little flat, but I enjoyed the rest of the book so much I didn't really care. So yeah, this one definitely has like a French flavor to the story, and it's a little dark. It's Little Red Riding Hood, so those retellings tend to be a little bit more on the darker side, but I was never creeped out or anything like by that, and I really liked this one. And the next one, actually the last one of this like series that I'm going to talk about, is maybe my favorite of them all, and that is Hansel and the Gingerbread Queen by Leah Doe. I'm not fully sure how to say the author's name. I'm sure that was incorrect. I actually have a whole video on this channel of me reviewing this book, so I will link that down below in the description. But I love this book. It's so small. It's so small and cute. And yeah, and the romance shouldn't work in a book this tiny, but it does, and it's like so sweet, and there's like a little cookie dragon, and there's like all these sweets, and it's really fun. This is a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, if you couldn't tell, and I love this book. I really need to get my own copy at some point because I really enjoyed this one. In fact, some of these, since I got them out of the library, I might just reread them. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. The romance works even though the book is so small, and yeah, it's just adorable, and I love it. Okay, and the last book I'm going to recommend is part of a series. The series all has romances, but this is my definite favorite out of all of them. So, for you people who like non-magical fantasy, this is definitely one of them, and that is Diamond by Kirsten Fichter. I don't think she and Brittany Fichter are related, but it's kind of weird that they both write fairy tale retellings and they have the same last name. This is book 3 in the Once Upon a Twist Tales series. This is a retelling of Rapunzel, and these are non-magical fantasy. I did like there are 4 books in the series so far. I did like the others too, but this one was definitely my favorite. It has tons of Tangled vibes. It has tons of just cute vibes. This is basically this tale. And Diamond, she's just living in the woods with her mother by herself, and then she stumbles across this guy, Seth, who is basically got beat up, and he has a broken leg, and he's left for dead in the middle of the woods. And she finds him, and she's like, well, I can't leave this guy here. I mean, he's gonna die otherwise. I mean, there's like this rogue bear running around in the forest too, so she's kind of afraid of like leaving him out there. So she drags him to this kind of guard tower that's like abandoned in the woods, and she takes him there, and she starts tending to him, and they kind of strike up a friendship, a low-key romance. Basically, this is like the lowest of low-key romances. If you like super clean, like squeaky clean, this is definitely it. There's not even any kissing. I think he hugs her once. But it works for the story because she's very suspicious of other people, especially men. So, and Seth can't necessarily speak her language. So that was an interesting thing. He doesn't know everything about it. So the author definitely writes it when he's trying to speak in her language, as in, like, it sounds weird because, like, some of the words are out of order and things like that, or not in the correct places. But it was never confusing. I actually thought it was an endearing trait because, he's trying to talk to her in a language that he's not very good at, and he's managing it, and then, yeah, it's just definitely adorable. I really liked this book, as I've said, but yeah, it's just their awkward adorableness. It was just wonderful, and like I said, if you like really squeaky clean, this is definitely it, because there's like a hug. And technically all this series is like that. The very first book is called The Rose and the Balloon. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I didn't care for that one as much. Also, these books have steampunk vibes. So they're non-magical fairy tale retellings with steampunk elements to them. So if you like that, I think this series might be up your alley. But yeah, The Rose and the Balloon is the first one. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. That one wasn't the greatest, if you ask me. But yeah, and like, if you don't care about Beauty and the Beast retellings, you could skip it. The second one is Spindle Dreams. It is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. I did really enjoy that one. The third book is Diamond, which is Rapunzel, and the fourth book is The Bear of Rosethorn Ring. Yes, that's it. It is a Snow White and Rose Red retelling, and it definitely follows after this one. If you are going to read any of these, you can skip The Rose and the Balloon if you don't care about Beauty and the Beast retellings, but definitely read Spindle Dreams, Diamond, and The Bear of Rosethorn Ring in that order, if you want the whole story, because the three of them kind of do connect. So yeah, and I really liked all of them, but this one is definitely my favorite, and yeah, I really enjoy it, and I want other people to know about it. So those are all my clean fantasy romance recommendations. I do realize a lot of them are fairy tale retellings, but those tend to be what I read, and yeah, some of them have like harder topics and stuff like that, but I really just enjoy all these books. These are ones that I definitely would reread at the drop of a hat. Like, if my mood allowed me to, I would definitely just reread these all the time. I did try to pick specific books that I know, like, the romance is a big focal point, because most books I read have romance in them. So I picked the ones where it's like a big point in the book. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment down below if you have any clean fantasy romance recommendations for me or for others who watch this video to check out. Please leave your suggestions down below in the comments. I would love to see them. Love to hear your opinions on any of these books, if you guys have read any of these and what you thought of them, or if you've heard of them and things like that. I'd love to hear all your thoughts on this. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and yeah, let me know also down below if you want any other types of recommendation videos like this. I've done similar ones with Christian fantasy, non-magical, and magical. Yeah, I don't know how many other types of videos I can do like this, but yeah, if you have any suggestions, leave them down below as well. Yeah, and thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!